right, do we have a quorum? I guess we'll call the meeting to order. And I guess I'll let Sam and Stephanie call the order, the roll, please.
Okay. Commissioner Bradley?
I'm here.
Commissioner Byer?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Michelina?
Here.
Commissioner Tondino?
Here.
Commissioner Williams? Commissioner Williams?
Hey, it's really hard to understand you. Is that
Yeah, I was
Because she has a
gonna
mask.
say the same thing. Got a lot of feedback going on.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that out loud?
How about now?
You're still sounding like a robot.
How about now?
Well, can everybody hear me? Because I guess
No, I can't hear him though.
You sound great.
Okay. All right. So is there any declaration of conflict of interest that anybody
Alex,
have?
you haven't finished roll.
Yes. We couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Williams?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay. And Commissioner Collier? Also present is Samantha, the Community Development Director, Stephanie Warren from the Finance Department, and our new short-term rental administrative assistant, Jacqueline Aveda. You do have a quorum. Did you get Anthony Collier?
Very good. I want to welcome the two new members to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the item is to have the commissioners announce if they have any declaration of conflict of interest for any items that are on the agenda today. Do I hear any? Hearing none. Stephanie, will you give your certificate of compliance?
I do certify that the notice of the meeting and properties were posted in accordance with Resolution 2020-01 and in compliance with Section 5440 of the Village Municipal Code.
Very good, thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. It looks fairly short. Do I have a motion to approve?
Get a motion to approve.
I
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Stephanie, did you get all that?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So motion to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Against? I didn't think so. Approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Awesome. Can I hear a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I move to approve the minutes of last meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Good. Moving right along. We're moving right along, Ron. Come on. Public input.
Yes, we are.
Is there anybody on the call or on Zoom or YouTube that would like to speak to the commission about anything that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go to the regular items. The first public hearing, which is preliminary development plan approval case SP 2020-0749. Sam, you want to state the case?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Here with us today is Jesse Townsend. He is requesting approval of a preliminary development plan approval to operate an outdoor recreation activities within a 5-acre tract known as the James Townsend Tract 1A located at 525 Resort Drive in Ruidoso. Let me share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, So this is our notification area of those within the 200-foot radius of the proposed project. This has been provided by the applicant, and he is on with us. So Jesse, if you'll just walk us through your intentions here. Jesse?
Jesse, if you're talking, you're on mute.
There we go. Has anybody got me now?
There you go.
There we go. Modern 2020 stuff we're dealing with here. So I think I've got everything put in here according to what is in the PUD zoning requirements. On this map, one of the important things was how the water drainage is. There is a seasonal creek that runs through the middle of the property, and that's the blue line through the middle of it, and everything drains to that area. One of the things that was in the requirements was the notes of the surrounding properties, and on my east side of my property is the Parks and Rec office, and on the west side of the property is city land, or also known as the Frisbee Golf Park. To the south of my property is an adjoining piece of our old property, which is the Kennedy property, or also known as Grindstone Stables. The north side of my property is Resort Drive that eventually continues on to Grindstone Lake to the west, or goes down to Grindstone Canyon to the east, and then that eventually turns into Carrizo Canyon. This piece of property is a pretty good location to have a recreational park. It's right in a good area. Some of the other important stuff that was on here, there is a private easement that comes off of Grindstone, or comes off of Resort Drive and enters the west side of my property on a 40-foot easement, and then turns and goes through the Frisbee Park to the backside of Grindstone Lake and also the Grindstone Stables. There's another easement that continues on that same line to the southwest or southeast that ties into the backside of the Kennedy property. As far as actual development, there's already water lines and power that are labeled in this diagram. I don't actually see any development anytime soon. Everything that I'd like to do is temporary in nature, such as bounce houses or pony rings, petting zoo stuff that's relatively easy to put up and take down. So if you guys have more questions, I'll be happy to fill you in on stuff that I can see.
Thank you, Jesse. My copy that I got in our packet was very hard to read, and I'm looking at Sam's screen with regard to the, I guess, some of the ideas. Sam, would you go a page back, Stephanie? So a lot of the information over there on the far left was very hard to read, and I guess commission is, can you give kind of an explanation of what, I know not positive, but what may be coming over there, what you have in writing?
Yes. If Stephanie, if you can pan over to the left just a little bit more, please, or Samantha. There's already somewhat of a parking area that has gravel on it, and that's listed in the middle of the property there. There's a power well, there's a well and a power pole on the far northeast corner of the property, and that's also close to where that city easement comes in. So there's already power lines and water lines, and that's what that little set of marks is that come down into the middle of the property. They're already established. There's a sewer easement that the city has through the middle of the property. That's the dotted line in the middle. And then some of the listed stuff, I don't even really think I want to do, a permanent office building. I think a temporary trailer would be more appropriate. I can see how there's several models that would work and how to blend stuff so that people aren't in vehicle traffic and that kind of stuff. I think it's probably going to take a little bit of playing with. So I don't have a really good plan as of right now. I can see the concept, but I don't know how to put stuff in. And then even for restrooms, I know the city would like to see some permanent restrooms, but I also noticed that like at Grindstone, they have some pretty high quality portable restroom trailers. And I think those would probably be more appropriate. Because ultimately in the wintertime, and especially if there's heavy snow, I don't necessarily think that this would be much of a draw, and I don't want to be open anyway. So I would like to just be able to shut stuff off and not have to worry about too much. If there's other questions along those lines, I'll be happy to try to fill you in.
Sure, I guess to Sam, so even though these are listed, corn maze, pony rides, petting zoos, that's not necessarily what we're approving today. Is that correct? Or are we approving all these things, bouncy houses and stuff? Sam, there you go.
Commissioner Riley, to answer your question, per the code, it just says that we are to make sure that what he's intending to develop is conducive to our comprehensive plan and will be harmonious to the neighborhood. You all do have the options to place conditions beyond what's listed here, but I do believe what he's recommending does need to stick, like it can't change drastically.
So the pony rides and petting zoo, if he decides to go through that, is conducive to the comprehensive plan and to the neighborhood to the north.
So I would agree to an extent that it is conducive with the comprehensive plan and that outdoor recreation was heavily
Right.
in the plan. I think that's something that the village would like to continue to promote is outdoor recreation.
Very good. I only have one last question. So the other parking lot that looks like it's to the east of the, all the stuff, is that going to be like an overflow? And is it going to be directly onto Grindstone Resort Drive, or does it go into the driveway up there at the very northwest corner?
I believe that would just be additional parking, and there's a line here in an easement where it comes back out to that lower entrance. That's a pretty good drop off right there just south of the resort drive. So you wouldn't be able to get through there anyways.
Okay. That's all my questions. Commissioners?
I have a couple. I was under the impression that we were actually just changing the zoning. I didn't know we had a comprehensive plan for this.
We did that last time.
Chairman Michelina, at the last meeting in November, the planning commission recommended to designate this property as commercial PUD. And so
Okay.
the village council will hear that at the Tuesday, December 8th meeting for a public hearing to actually do the zone change. So at that time, he would be reclassified if the governing body so chooses to be rezoned as commercial planned unit development. And
Okay.
so his concept plan and his site plan was approved by the planning commission in November. And so here today we are at the next step for the preliminary. And beyond this, just for explanation purposes, he will need another public hearing from planning for final should the governing body approve this preliminary plan that you all recommend. So he still has several steps ahead of him.
Okay.
you have anything else, Ron?
Just the fact, we received that letter about 5 minutes ago from, I guess, somebody who's not happy with the project. And it seemed like when we had gone through this before, it was a lot of the surrounding people around the area, not necessarily within 200 feet. And I know that that's the basis of what we're supposed to make our decision on, but I'd like to hear more from the public.
Yeah, we'll get there. Just asking if there's any commissioners that have any questions for the actual development, then we'll open it to public hearing and then we'll have questions again.
May I ask what the person's concerns were who wrote the letter?
Sam, you want to read those into the record now or after the public hearing? Or during the public hearing?
I'd like to read those during the public hearing.
Okay, Vicki, we'll get to that.
Are you sure?
Any other commissioners? Hearing none right now. Again, we can reserve our time for after the public hearing. At this time, I'm going to open the meeting to public hearing. Is there anybody on Zoom or in YouTube that wishes to have a discussion about this proposal?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Identify yourself, please.
Richard Burns. I own property within the 200 feet of the proposed recreation park. I've written several letters as this has come up a number of times over the last few months. So you've got emails from me in regards to the project in general. I didn't write anything for this meeting because, quite frankly, there was nothing in the information showing what was actually being proposed. I mean, I know that Mr. Townsend was granted the commercial zoning at one of the last meetings, but there wasn't much specifics about what the project was actually going to be. I am concerned about a number of things which I've had in previous emails. Nothing has really changed. One of the last things that was proposed didn't include the bouncy house and the slide. It was petting zoo and some of the other recreational things, and I was more agreeable to those kinds of things. One of the big problems I'm going to have is just the noise pollution, the additional traffic that's going to be on Resort Drive, in addition to everything else that's going on at the lake. I know that that's not something that he's too concerned about, but certainly as a property owner in that area, I am. So I don't know if there's, infrastructure development that's going on within the village that's going to take care of some of that or not. But those are, some of my concerns, and I think other neighbors within that area have similar kinds of concerns. So, I'd just like to know really what his plan really is. I mean, I would hope that you aren't going to give him just a blank check to put whatever he chooses on that property, that there's some consideration about what goes into it.
Very good, Mr. Burns. We will wait for everybody else to have comments, and then we'll ask Mr. Townsend if he could maybe address some of your concerns and issues. Is there anybody else out there that would like to talk about this project?
Mr. Bailey, this is Collier. May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
My mute button was turned on. I wanted to ask Mr. Townsend, to clarify what the occupancy might be established due to restroom and parking being one of the major concerns, other than the road not being able to handle all that extra traffic. A portable toilet of a men's and women's, in my opinion, would probably not support the amount of people that I'm anticipating that's going to happen on that. In addition, I'd like to ask Mr. Townsend, has he read this letter from the residents, and can he address their concerns?
Okay, pick one question you want to start with. I was trying to keep up with a lot of information there.
Oh, okay, you mentioned portable toilets, and you draw a small parking lot. Well, how many people do you think you're going to have show up at this event? And furthermore, did you get to read the comments from your residents, your neighbor residents? And if you didn't,
Okay, so
can you respond?
as far as the toilets go, I've been talking to the village and the Parks and Rec office about if they have a formula where they know how many toilets to provide, whatever the number is. I'm still in the process. As far as I understood what we're in right now, this is a concept plan and a preliminary plan to figure out how to get some of those fine numbers put into a figure that we can actually see. And as of right now, I don't know what that number is. So,
And the parking?
And the parking, there's a pretty large area that's 100 by 150 that would be the primary parking. And this was the same parking area that my family had used for our trail rides when we had 10,000 guests a year. And it was sufficient parking for the previous 30 years. So that's why there's also another lot off to the side that says for overflow or additional parking if need be. But I don't know. I'm not sure I'm not sure how many people this is going to draw. It may be the type of deal like the whole world is starting to see in 2020, where you got to make reservations and you limit it based in, and this isn't going to be just a wild operation. I live right across the street, so I want to keep things under control. So maybe we do have to have some type of time frame, and they're going to be limited on time anyways. So as far as that goes, I was hoping that the village and anybody that's got experience in that would help me figure out what those numbers are and come up with some kind of formula.
Well, from my experience this summer, I avoid the drive from my house back down to the traffic circle because of the excess traffic to the lake and the Frisbee Park as it is now. Do you understand that you're going to increase the traffic with the development of this park?
I'm not sure if that's the situation why a resident of the area, we've owned this property since 1988, why I would be punished for something that the village or the general public or society in itself is doing. I don't have any control over what's going on.
I'm not insinuating punishing you, Mr. Townsend. I'm just asking you to address the anticipated needs of your neighbors who think that this is going to cause a traffic problem with noise. They read music, traffic, loud crowds. I mean, like I said, I avoid the area this summer because just for the fishing, the lake, and the Frisbee Park. That's just existing. And you're wanting to increase that. I'm not trying to penalize you or even insinuate it. I just like for you to address how you plan to allow that much extra traffic on Resort Drive.
Commissioner Collier, if I can interrupt, again, we've heard this on two different occasions where I know that you were not part of that, and we'll share with you all the minutes and all the comments and everything that has been brought up both by the public and by the commissioners, and a lot of those things have been talked about already in the past. And so,
pardon me,
if you don't mind, I'll get through with the public hearing, and then we'll go ahead and get back to questions and answers.
Okay, great.
And answer those things. So I don't see a lot of people on the screen for other public. Is there any other public that wishes to talk about this project for or against? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. So, Sam, would it be adequate, since we have new commissioners, to kind of give a summary of the events that have led up to this? Because we've heard this at least twice. I think this is number 3. And so we maybe give a little summary, I guess, to give the two new members a little bit of idea what's going on. And then whatever you miss, we'll let Mr. Townsend add in. Would that be acceptable, Sam?
Yes, absolutely, Chairman Riley.
Thank you.
I won't elaborate on his previous application since it doesn't have any weight on his new application. However, Mr. Townsend appeared before the Planning Commission at the November meeting requesting to be designated as a commercial planned unit development. And he also presented a concept and site plan in which the rezone of commercial planned unit development was recommended for approval to the governing body, and that will be heard in December. The concept plan and the site plan were brought forth to the development review committee internally. Department directors that would have an impact due to this type of a development were asked to weigh in and present any of their concerns. And then shared those with Mr. Townsend so he could incorporate them and work those issues out. The types of details that they would need. And so we have worked with him to make sure he addressed those concerns. We went through the concept and found that it was conducive to the comprehensive plan and in line with the vision for outdoor recreation. Here today, he's brought forth his preliminary proposal in which must be approved by the village council as well. We were only gonna seek recommendation from you all and bring that forward. Like Mr. Townsend said in the description of his activities, he's outlined what he plans to use his property for. We do have 2 letters that were against this type of development that have been shared with you all. As a reminder, those 2 letters were outside of the 200-foot radius, and that 200-foot radius is set by code. We are required to notify all property owners within 200 feet of the application. And so if I miss something and you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
So, Sam, the letters that were received that were beyond the 200-foot, are they a part of the official record, or are they not part of the official record? And do you need to read them in?
Yes, they'll remain a part of the exhibits for this case, and if you all would like me to read them in, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Sam,
Yes.
I'd just remind you that this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and people who testify quasi-judicial hearings have to be subjected to cross-examination, and letters are not subject to cross-examination. So I don't think they should be a part of the record or entered into as evidence.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. And I forgot to swear people in that we're going to speak on behalf of this. I skipped a point, so I apologize. And if I need to swear Mr. Burns in after the fact, should I do that, Zach, or is this?
Yeah, go ahead and do that with him and Mr. Townsend.
Okay, Mr. Townsend, Mr. Burns, being the only 2 non-commissioned members, would you raise your right hand and swear that you're speaking on behalf of the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot that at the beginning. All right, so we're done with our public hearing. We have heard a little bit from Sam as far as the history of this. Now I'll turn it back over to the commissioners to ask questions of Mr. Townsend and whatever. And I guess I do have one, and I know I asked this before, So the little block that says, riding stables, petting zoo, whatever, this is not a for sure. This is a concept that we might put that in. And if he does put that in, do we have to see this again through an actual site plan?
If he expands his business model, is that what you're asking?
No, to what's existing in handwriting in there. It says petting zoo, pony rides and stuff like that. So he is submitting this as a part of what he's planning to do, correct?
Yeah.
All right, commissioners, leave it up to you. Commissioner Collier, did you get what you kind of, did you get a summary of what was going on?
Yes, I did, and I apologize. I should have inquired about that before making that question present. But I think that's one of the biggest issues is parking in a restroom. And if you'll update me, I'll be I can read it here. Samantha, is this in the addenda packet?
Yes,
The
sir.
meeting.
His restrooms will be temporary in nature due to this being a startup business. We do encourage Jesse in the future to install permanent sanitary facilities for his guests.
Is that a condition we could put in there?
You all can place the conditions as needed, and we will make sure we update the case study.
Would there have to be, or should there be a time limit to which this would be accomplished or arranged?
I believe if you so choose, you could put that as a condition.
Could we understand that it should be relative to the total number of guests that, somehow, I understand what you guys are getting at, but 4 years from now, if it's not necessarily producing and it costs $40,000 to build a nice restroom, that might not be feasible either. Because I know that's about what it costs to build a restroom is $40,000.
And you're basing that on what?
That
Somebody
I've talked
gave
to
you a quote?
Well, I had talked to Rodney at the Parks and Rec office about how I could help Parks and Rec by building a facility on my property that the Frisbee golfers could use, because I don't really enjoy the fact everybody's got their own complaints about what's going on up there in Grindstone, but nobody's taking into consideration that people are driving across my property and walking across my property and their dogs run on my property. So I'm trying to find something where I can meet in the middle. I would build public restrooms on my property that the public could use so that there didn't have to be a porta potty out in the middle of the Frisbee golf course, so people aren't defecating in the Frisbee golf course or up in my property. So the number that Rodney told me that cost the city to get a public restroom built was $40,000.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good number. There's a temporary toilet with a men's and women's and shower located over there behind the grocery store, the Thriftway, the new RV park that they remodeled. I met that guy last year, and he told me that that's about what it costs for a temporary portable toilet, men's and women's, with one handicap accessible shower.
Right.
Is that something you're willing to go forward with?
Oh, absolutely. If it's feasible. I mean, the first year or the first couple of years, I don't have any idea what to expect or how many numbers, what they really are. And I was hoping that people at the Parks and Rec office in the village could include me in on some of their information, like the things that they've done at Grindstone Lake. They've got portable restroom trailers that go all the way to the far west side of the lake now. So I'm gonna do whatever I can do to make it a successful sanitary business, but on the same hand, the money is is a problem, and we've been in this deal. I've been working on this for a year.
Might I suggest, to the commissioners that are gonna make this motion, I would, I guess, encourage a timeline, because if his business goes bust, a lot of money is wasted. If his business goes really boom, he's gonna need a bigger bathroom. So it just, which way we go, and we might, be lenient enough to give him a year or two timeline before we actually say you must have some sort of permanent bathrooms. So that's just a suggestion.
I'd also like to see included hours of operation. I think if we put that in, it might alleviate some of the concerns of the other people here.
Jesse, you really didn't talk about that as far as this is just going to be a day. Maybe you did at one of the other hearings, just a daytime type of operation. Is that correct?
Correct.
7 days a week.
Hopefully, yes, sir.
I,
Yeah, it's reduced overtime. You gotta be 7 days a week.
I would really like to see something, Mr. Townsend, that's a little more detailed as to what, I understand your little drawings and things like that. But it's really hard for us to approve something that is really doesn't have much detail to it. We're approving something that has a large impact on the surrounding area. And so to do that kind of like on a whim of not quite understanding fully, what is going to be happening, what is going on. There's just this question of, there might be pony rides, there might be this, there might be that. This is what I'm looking at. For me personally, I would like to see some more definite plans in place, so if you do get approved, you know what you're doing. It's just hard for me to look at this and say, oh yeah, let's approve him, and then not really know what I just did.
Okay, well, I thought we had covered some of this. It's gonna be a fall festival pumpkin patch type of operation where things can be varied depending on the season and what works and what doesn't work. And there's things that work by nature at certain times of the years. And I mean, as of right now, I feel like the concept plan, the preliminary plan is what we're looking for, because there's still another step in January before I get even closer to a finalized plan. This is a concept. If we don't approve this concept, that's fine, but I felt like that's what we were trying to do, was approve the concept here.
Well, I mean, I just, from what you've been saying about, working on this for as long as you have, and, and that's great and all, but, I would just think that we'd have, you'd have it laid out, measured out, what's going where, how it's going to be, even if it does change, if you have a booth that changes depending on the season, or you put pumpkins in that area for that time. And then, just having, something more concrete. And I understand what you're saying about, this is a preliminary. I'm just saying, for me personally, I would like to see something that is just, drawn out by somebody that has dimensions or has, things that say, yes, I am going to have an identified gravel parking lot or whatever that's going to be, this area is going to have this many spaces and so forth, that kind of thing. I understand preliminary stuff too, but it's just kind of a little hard for me. I'm just saying that for me.
I think that is common question, because again, concept plan versus a plan. One of the first conditions that the staff put on is that the applicant can make no substantial changes in the plans. And so what are the plans? And like I said, the staff, I guess, assumes that these are the plans. And if they are, then I know that there's going to be a lot of work be done on the staff part with regard to any permanent structures, with regard to parking lot, how many spaces, how many handicap stalls. Somebody is still going to have to do all those pieces. Is that right, Sam?
So this plan, even though it's hand-drawn, is what we are planning on holding Jesse to. It is much more detailed than what he submitted during the concept and sketch plan. It is not professionally done, no. However, we did tell him to draw it to scale what he was intending to do. So that is what myself and Stephanie have been working and going off of. And we do anticipate him utilizing these sections of this 5-acre tract as.
Commissioners?
I agree with Commissioner Tandino. I think we need to have a more comprehensive written out plan with guidelines that we base this on.
I'd also like to mention on the analysis on page 4 of 8, item D, preliminary development plan. Item C reads the general location map showing surrounding land use and traffic circulation pattern. I don't see any of that. And I agree with you that.
There's a secondary page.
Sir?
There's a secondary page. It was getting too much stuff on one map. So there's a secondary page that shows traffic use.
It is on page 3.
Page 3, right.
Well, that may indicate the traffic direction, but what they're referring to, in my opinion, is traffic count. How many people are going to be using that road, which is really insufficient as it is now. I mean, I think we ought to at least know what's going to happen on the amount of traffic. Is there a way that we can, Mr. Townsend, is there a way that you can calculate or come up with some sort of a number for review or an approval?
If Zach's still listening, I'd like Zach to help me out here a little bit. This is a PUD zoning that goes back to pre-1988. This was when the Village of Ruidoso wanted to promote the infill of vacant land within the village and have a more creative and harmonious design than what other zoning would allow. I have requested to be a commercial operation so that I can do that under your parameters. But when my family bought this property, we were promised and told that we could do this kind of stuff. And I understand that the village has moved away from that, but it matches a comprehensive plan. And my family's been here since 1988. So this area is already set up and established knowing that there could be this kind of stuff and that it could have a high impact on the streets. And I don't know what the count is, but nobody asked me my opinions about the stuff that should go on at the lake. They just happen. And that's what happens in this situation. And now the village has come up with their own solution, and that's to limit and make people have reservations. But the impact of what could happen with my property on that road shouldn't have anything to do with my comprehensive plan or the preliminary plan. If Zach's there, can Zach back me up or am I wrong?
I'm still here and I'm still listening, but just to clarify, I'm not here to help you or advocate for you. I'm here on behalf of the village to give legal advice to the commission. So just listening to you guys.
That's what it does say in the book.
I'm sorry?
That is what is written in the code book. I don't have my code book with me, but the concept of the PUD, I'm not incorrect about what that says. Or maybe you can't say yes or no either way.
Well, my comments are not to discourage necessarily you not doing anything. It's more about what we are approving and what is being set forth. I just, you know, like I said, for me, it is just a little unclear. You know, because we also take into consideration the people around you and knowing, saying, hey, this guy's doing what he's supposed to do. He's set for these things and this is what he's going to do and when, and those kind of things makes us, you know, or makes me at least feel better about approving something that I know what's going to happen. And maybe this isn't the meeting to be talking like this in. Maybe that's the next one when you actually, you know, if you have an actual drawn out, you know, plan of what's going to be there. But that, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. And that's the only thing. It has nothing to do with, I don't want you to do anything. I just, you know, I want to know what it is. And I don't really feel like at this point we have a firm idea on what that is and what it's going to look like per se.
Well, if I can jump in, if we go to the case report, if you look at page 5, Planning Commission review and hearing, and look at all these things that we're supposed to look for in a relationship with the planning element, conditions on and off property performance, and it goes on to talk about landscaping and lighting and open space and grading, drainage, signage, screening, setbacks. We have been, I guess, told that this is a concept. We gave him the PUD commercial zone so that he can come back so that we can look at all these things. And I'm kind of in agreement that, you know, and that's why I asked Sam to blow these things up on the screen, because I couldn't read any of them. I was at the point this afternoon when I was reading them, it's just, I don't know what he's doing. I have no idea what we are approving. And I think that's what I hear the confusion with the rest of the commission is, what are we approving? And so I'm kind of in agreement with, I think we need a little bit more detail and go with this checklist that's on here to talk about everything that's on here, whether we did or didn't. Maybe we looked, we didn't see it all last meeting. I guess I'm looking to staff as far as these 15 or so things. Are these addressed in the plan as you have accepted? And is it worth our review to say, okay, well, I want to see where the loading and unloading areas are. It doesn't show this. And that's the kind of thing I think the confusion of the commission is. And so staff, I'll let you handle this if this is what we're reviewing or what we did review already. And if we approved it by concept with all these 10 or 15 items that we didn't look at yet, or we've been looking in the future.
The concept was approved in November. We have worked with Jesse to get greater detail in his plan, and this is what has been provided. I apologize, the font was small. However, we do feel after review and going through this checklist that he has met these needed items. He is proposing something very temporary in nature, without structures, you know, that would require plumbing and things of that nature. So that is different compared to, I think, what the spirit of the code was. So that makes our job very difficult today because of his proposal. But I do feel that he has met these. He does have a hand-drawn plan here put together. You can tell there was little to no investment on his part to put together this plan, but I feel he has addressed the needs within the code.
I have a question, Mr. Townsend. I know at our first meeting, I think it was, you were proposing potentially doing some overnight camping. Has that been thrown out?
As of now, that has been thrown out, yes.
So this is just a daytime thing?
Correct.
To answer that question, Scarlett, that was a completely different application. That case has been closed. He did appeal to the council. In no way, shape, or form are we here today to approve a campground.
Okay. So is there any possible way we can get this professionally drawn up, actually to scale? I know you said it's to scale, but I don't think it is. And so that we can have something real to look at and then decide.
I have talked to Sierra Blanca Title and Surveying and a couple in Rito. So everybody's so far behind that we could be 6 months out maybe on getting that kind of stuff put together. This was the best I could do. I'm not a land developer. This isn't even a land developed model. This is where the water lines are, from what I understood and what I read the book of where the water lines are and where the established power lines were and where the established road easements are. And then everything else is temporary. If it's a bouncy house, I mean, somebody can rent Wingfield Park and put temporary stuff in there for 3 days, or you can rent the Frisbee Park and have camping in there for 3 days. The reason that I want to do this is I want it to be temporary, and I don't want to have to put a lot of investment in it, but something that seasonally you could change. You might not want that type of bouncy house again, or maybe bouncy houses don't work, or maybe the pony rides don't work. I don't know. There's a lot of draw for some kind of outdoor recreation, and this is specifically geared for little kids and families, because there's nothing for little kids in Ruidoso to do. Even if you take them to the lake, you still got to keep an eye on them, and it stresses everybody out. The go-kart tracks aren't designed for the little kids, not even when I was a little kid. So I don't understand why just saying that I'm going to have parking lots and then it may just be a playground. There may just be fun stuff and play cornhole games and washers and just sit outside. That people are missing that, and especially with the Ruidoso climate, I think it's a model that will work. It works in California, it works in other parts of the East Coast, and I think it's going to work in Ruidoso. But to expect that I'm going to tell you this is exactly where I'm going to put the pumpkins and how many, that's dang sure taken away the joy of building your own business on family property that we've owned since 1988.
Mr. Townsend, I don't think that they're mentioning or wanting you to count Halloween adornments and things of that nature. I think what they think, and I'm going to agree if they're agreeing with me, we'd like to see an enlarged plan of the drop off and pickup area along with the parking area and how that interacts with the street, because you've been there long enough to know that the street is narrow as it is. And then I guess that would be to the west, where your anticipated office, and the temporary restrooms. Would somebody agree with me on that?
My thoughts are that it's not about where the bouncy house goes and how many pumpkins and whatever. I'm just looking at here, the parking lot, for example. I see the dimensions on the parking lot, but there's 23 parking spaces, which is clearly not drawn to scale. And so to me, the way it's hand drawn and not accurate just shows that there's not very much thought put into it. And if there's not very much thought put into it now, how are we supposed to trust that once it's up and running, it's like a real professional business that's not causing more harm than good?
So I have a question that I guess maybe we haven't really talked about, but as a commercial PUD and a parking lot, as Scarlett said, can he charge for parking? like overflow for the Grindstone Lake and stuff like that? Can he, now that he's a commercial parking lot, charge for parking?
So as a commercial business, and what takes place on his property, he would be able to assess a fee. However, incorporating Grindstone or the other activities that the village has in operation up there, I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, and Jesse, I think one of the things, whether we're supposed to remember, 3 or 4 months, I thought that during the summer you did propose, or you charged for parking, or you had something in there that the village said, no, you can't do that. Is there ideas to charge for parking for overflow?
That is one of my ideas, and something I don't even have. I've worked on this so many times and scratched things off. One of the things that I would like to do is also tractor rides and hay rides, or carriage rides with horses. That is something that has been discussed, that some people in the village think would be positive, where people could access the south side of the lake via my property and they could park, and some kind of transportation could be arranged. At the deal that had happened previously, that was Memorial Weekend, I did charge for parking for the weekend, and then was fined for the fact that I didn't have an actual business license. So more of that stuff. The village wants to work with me, but the village won't tell me yes or no, or even hardly give me a hint until I'm approved to do something legally. So if you guys don't want bouncy houses or comprehensive plans that match, I would like to just get a business license to sell Christmas trees.
Okay, I have one
And
more
that's another
question.
model that-
Let me address what Ms. Scarlett mentioned. Here's the numbers that I'm coming up with, and you can add this to your plan, and this may help resolve the issue. I don't know, but if there are 23 parking spots, let's say there's 3 people on the minimum per car. That's a total of 69 people at a full parking lot. I don't know what the plumbing code is in the village, but I think it's 1 for 5 people, 1 toilet for each 5 people. But even if it's 1 for 10, that's 13 toilets. Now, is that something that you can address, or is that something you can? What I'm asking is, are you going to be able to address these numbers in a full house?
If I need 13 toilets, yes, I'll get 13 toilets.
Well, I mean, we got 69 people on an occupancy of 3 per car. What if there's 5 per car or 6?
We don't have that kind of availability.
But we have to plan for it, don't we?
And there's 1,000 people that'll show up there. There are not that many.
So whoever's talking is muffled. I can't hear anything.
Because he has a mask on.
Can we say that again, please?
Yeah, there's, I think we're off, somebody's quoting off on the number of toilets necessary. You think about the convention center, there's not nearly that many toilets to service, 1,000 people or more that show up there, and there's never an issue that I see. I think, to put it bluntly, Jesse, Scarlett put it very eloquently. Your application is kind of half-ass as far as the presentation. It doesn't look very professional in there. I think a lot of people's concern is that what you're going to do is going to be half-ass. And that's, I think, why everybody's hemming and hawing around this deal. And otherwise, if it were professionally done and looked like like you really put some effort into this and thought and all, that they'd probably be more behind it. Anyways, that's my comment.
Commissioners, we've talked this to death. Do we have any proposed motions or anything that you want to suggest as a motion. We have, can approve it, we can modify it, we can deny it, we can table it. There are just a lot of things that, whatever you choose to do, we can go on from here.
Chairman Briley, if I may, you all do have the option to postpone this for 2 regular meetings, to allow him time to come back with a more professional, legible, clear proposal for his preliminary plan, should you choose.
So postpone instead of table? Because this is a continuance of a public hearing? Is that my understanding?
Yes, and he would be entering more information into the record.
Well, I'd like to add, while you guys are contemplating what to do with this situation, I would like to have something, and you guys give me the legal right to do something with my property, please. Even if it's guided hiking tours and I can allow people to legally park on my property and can walk safely off of my property. But I've been in limbo for as long as I can remember, and I understand that the Planning Commission has a responsibility to make sure that things are done in a safe manner, but this is also my property where I feel I have a right to do something with it.
Thank you, Jesse. And again, we are thinking about the health, safety, and welfare of as well, as long as it meets code and provisions and comprehensive plans and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of things we have to weigh. And I know this commission does talk and think about the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So I know their motion will reflect what they feel.
So,
go ahead.
When council hears this on Tuesday, say they approve our recommendation from last meeting, he'll then be able to do something with his property as a CPUD, right?
So within the code, he would not be able to do any type of development until the plan is finalized. After this, he needs to show us what he's going to be doing.
Okay. I would like to, I don't have the exact words for it, but in a motion, I would like it to say that Mr. Townsend needs to have a definite plan. I understand, Mr. Townsend, that you don't know what's gonna work and what's not gonna work and those kinds of things, but you have to decide at some point what to go forward with. And so just have a definite plan that you are moving forward with until something doesn't work. Because right now I feel like there's so many different ideas that are just all up in the air. And I want to see like a definite plan that this is what I'm starting with, and that's what we're going to go with for now.
Well, the recreational concept, I thought that's what I was hoping that's what it is, outdoor recreation area. Is that not clear? Or does?
I guess so. I guess I'm just hearing like, well, maybe I'm going to do a bounce house and maybe the bounce house won't work, or maybe the pony rides won't work, but I'm going to put it here if I do it. And then I'm probably going to have a pumpkin patch in the fall and maybe a Christmas tree farm. And I don't know. I just hear, is that just me, or am I just hearing a lot of non-definitive ideas?
Okay, those are all definitive ideas, but they would vary seasonally.
Right.
And we're only using, I mean, I did put in my small numbers over there. We're only using a less than half of a 5-acre tract of stuff that could grow and develop and be into something that was bigger. This is the small initial plan of something that is manageable and affordable for me to get started with.
Okay, so your plan right now, for sure, right at the start, you're going to put up pony rides, petting zoo, bouncy house, temporary bathrooms. And then come seasonal things like fall, you'll do pumpkins, Christmas, you'll do Christmas trees. That's like for sure a plan right now. Am I leaving anything out?
Parking,
And
Yeah, the parking and the tractor ride, hayride concept. And it may only be the tractor ride, hayride if I can't, with employees and the way the world is, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the air. So that I would hope I could have the leniency to figure out what's gonna work from a season even to a day-to-day. Maybe midweek, you just do tractor rides. That's why I'm saying that there is a lot of maybe, and I'm hoping that you guys can see and understand that as an entrepreneur trying to do this myself, I don't want to have a lot of employees for startups. And I would like to have stuff that's pretty low maintenance. So truthfully, after my research with the bouncy houses, I think it would work eventually, but the cost of the bouncy house insurance truthfully makes it where it's something that's not going to go the first season. Unless I can, it takes 90 days just to get approved from the state so that you can have a bounce house set up on your property for a commercial activity. So at this rate, I won't have a bounce house by 4th of July.
Okay, so can we give him a month or 2 months, whatever is feasible, to get there's a few different drafts people here in Ruidoso. I don't think it has to be a licensed architect, but just some kind of drafts person to get this drawn up professionally to scale. I think that pretty much just means the parking lot, the flow of traffic, and the temporary restroom location, temporary office location. And then also probably a typed up plan. I know it's can't be written in stone, but something that says these months of the year, this will be happening. And then these months of the year, I'll have a pumpkin patch. This month I'll have a Christmas tree. Just some kind of time frame for us to look at.
Is that a question to me or the commission?
Carla, is that something you want to put into a motion?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of asking, like, does that sound okay with everybody else to put in a motion?
well, it looks like we can't approve it. It looks like we shouldn't deny it. So it's gotta be item number 2, require modifications. Because I think we all agree that that's a neat idea for that land use. But we also want it to be, like Mr. Bailey mentioned, safe for the environment. We don't want to offend the neighbors. So it has to be item number 2, require modifications. So I'd make a motion that we approve this. We require modifications to the preliminary development plan as we have stated before.
I don't think this is a complete motion, right?
And
We gotta complete that motion with what the
yeah,
requirements
you said
are.
you said approve but require modifications. So could you clerk the motion, please?
Well, we approve the concept, but we require modifications to clarify the intent for the PUD.
So,
And
yes, Zach, please.
based on everything I've heard, I don't know that you're at a place to approve it. And if you wanted to modify it, you'd have to come up with modifications that would fit what you're doing right here today to go along with the motion to approve. You don't want to move to approve with modifications that you guys will review at a later date. If you want to modify it today, then modify it today and then approve it. Somebody just mentioned a review of the intent of the application, and I would draw everybody's attention to section 54-105, planned unit development overlay zone. And it says the purpose and intent of a planned unit development is to produce more appropriate development that would result in strict application of this article and provides flexibility, promote the infill of vacant land, and accomplish more aesthetic and desirable developments, which can best utilize and protect special features of the geography, topography, size, and shape in particular pieces of property that provide a compatible and stable environment in harmony with the surrounding area. And I think all of you have a lot of questions about what exactly is going to happen at that property. And if you don't know, then how can you conclude that this application complies with the purpose and intent of a planned unit development?
So I'm going back with what's saying is do we need to give him a postponement 2 more months to come up with a clearer picture for the commission of what he wants to do?
And if you do that, I think that Jesse needs to know that he should come back with a plan that shows all of these items on page 5 and 6 under number 2.
Right.
That give you guys something to contemplate in your meeting, rather than sit around and wonder what you're even considering. For example, does it comply with the comprehensive plan? Well, your staff said that it does.
Right.
In a relationship with the plan elements on conditions both on and off the property. You guys have talked a lot about that. Anticipated traffic and parking conditions. There's a lot of questions still on the table about the effect of parking and traffic. The adequacy of the plan with respect to land use. I think you might have covered that. I think everybody thinks that it's appropriate, that the vague concept of it. What about pedestrians and building location, landscaping, lighting, provisions for utilities? We've talked about outhouses, but what else? Site drainage, open space, loading and unloading areas, grading, signage, greenage, setbacks. You guys don't have anything in the application that would allow you to contemplate and analyze whether or not you want to go forward with this development.
Well, the review, to approve the modification would allow Mr. Townsend to address all of those issues. For instance, site lighting. We know there's going to need to be lighting of some kind at the entrance to the parking, but if we approve to require modifications, then we would have a chance to go through those items individually. Do you agree?
I think procedurally, you don't want to approve this plan if you still have all of these things lingering out there.
Mr. Collier.
Procedurally, I think you should postpone it and let him come back and address all of those items and bring it back to you.
Okay, let me try to make it. Based upon the foregoing findings of fact per section 654-67 of the Village Code, I move to postpone the approval of the James Townsend Tract 1A proposed preliminary development plan for case number SP-2020-0289. With the conditions that he will bring back
I don't think you need to add any conditions. Let me start over, because you're not going to postpone the approval. You're postponing this case to a later date. I think Jesse sat here and listened, and hopefully he knows what he needs to come back with, and he can work with Samantha and the community development. Why don't you just make a motion to postpone?
Well, hold on, Zach, please. From what Samantha, and I get that it's a hand-drawn deal. I haven't played on computers and done AutoCAD in 20 years, but I thought I met the requirements because there is no landscaping. The parking lot is already there. I don't know that I need lighting. It's going to be a daytime operation. There's already commercial traffic on this road and this easement. I was hoping that I could be allowed to do something with my property, because this also needs to go in front of City Council sometime in January. And I still believe that, yeah, maybe I could tighten up my parking and give you exact measurements, but I would like to have large parking. I don't know what that exact formula turns out to be. I'm not even in New Mexico at the moment, but there's plenty of ample area to do what I need to do under safe circumstances, and it matches a comprehensive plan. If it's in a recreational area where there's Parks and Rec on one side, a Frisbee golf course, and a Grindstone Lake, And as far as what I've seen from the promotion and the development of Grindstone Lake, they have been able to work their way along in steps and processes without a whole lot of interference. And I would like to have some leniency to at least be able to get a business license for me and my property and not be in violation if I want to do a guided hiking tour or rent Frisbees. I could rent Frisbees off of my property to the Frisbee golf course, or fishing poles, or sell bait. But as of right now, I can't do anything with my property. And this is zoned to be commercial. It was zoned to be planned unit development. I think most of the codes that they're going back and they're looking at that were written and adopted over the years was that if I wanted to promote this whole 5 acres into a residential area where it needed turnarounds and cul-de-sacs and drainage and that kind of stuff, but that's a very specific set of rules for a pretty loose diagram that doesn't really apply to what I'm trying to do right now. Because the Frisbee Park and Grindstone Lake are all zoned the same way too. And I don't know why they didn't ever have to be gone commercial and looked at as hard as I've been looked at.
I believe that's the case because it's a public park and we're offering public amenities. And so it's the difference between private property development.
And I think, you know,
Sorry,
Mr. Townsend, the thing is here too, it's, you know, we understand what you're trying here.
I'm not sure who's speaking. I'm not getting a lot. Hold on. Can we start over with that?
It's not, I understand where you're coming from, and it's not like we're trying to stop you from doing anything. The thing is, what you need to understand is when we approve something like this, it presents the options for things to happen that are far greater than what I think you're thinking of at the moment. And so we have a lot more to think about than just pony rides and things like that when we approve this kind of thing. So I'm going to make a motion to require modifications to the preliminary development plan and have a return for planning commission review at the next meeting. And just being more definite as to what's going to happen, even in the temporary nature of that. Having a starting plan, like Scarlett said, so that we can help you move forward with something on your property.
I'm sorry, we had a motion being made by Commissioner Kelly already, which was stopped by Zach for guidance on the wording to postpone it. So there's already like an open motion that hasn't been completed. Zach, how do I proceed? Do I start with Kelly's? Do I wait for yours? Or do I change it all for Jonathan's?
I think chairman should just consider all previous motions withdrawn and entertain a new motion.
Okay.
Thank you. Scarlett, is that okay with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I just add a quick note before the motion?
Go ahead.
Mr. Townsend, the list on page 6, not all of those things are in your hand-drawn plan. And had they been there, I feel like this would have been a much quicker and easier decision. So if you can just refer to that list before we see your next plan, I think that would be really helpful for us.
So now what do we do?
And it doesn't have to necessarily be to scale and to draftsman's expertise. We just need to be able to read it.
I think it does have to be the scale on the ordinance, but you're right. It doesn't. You don't have to go to a fancy licensed person. It doesn't matter, but it does have to meet the requirements of the ordinance.
Okay.
And there is a certain scale, I think, in the ordinance.
And on development plans, I think there is. Jonathan, did you want to continue with your motion?
I move to require modifications to the preliminary development plan and have a return for the planning commission review at the next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And thank you for everybody for bearing with us for is kind of difficult. So, Stephanie, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Byers,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Michelina,
Aye.
Commissioner Tondino,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Collier,
Agree?
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
motion carries.
So Jesse, do you understand what the motion was? Is you need to,
Not really.
you need to modify your plan, get with Sam as far as what we think we're looking for, and bring it back in a clear state for our next meeting.
And when is that time frame? A month?
I'm looking at my calendar. When's the next meeting?
I think it's the 5th.
January 5th. Jesse,
Yeah.
just to elaborate now for the record, what they are asking you to do is to submit a professional drawing. And please type up something describing all of the activities and timeframe, even if they are seasonal, as to what's going to take place. We need a concrete plan in order to move forward.
To scale.
The deadline for the January meeting is December 16th, at 5 o'clock. So if you would like to meet the January deadline, that's your date. If not, the commission has an option to postpone it 2 meetings.
Very good.
I'll get right on that.
Thanks, Sam. Thank Jesse. Thank you, everybody. Lost my place on the agenda. So I think that's all of our regular items. Is there any comments from the commissioners? Community development report. Do you have anything, Sam?
Real quick, Chairman Riley, I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Aveda. She's our new administrative assistant in the community development department. I don't know if y'all can see her very well. Do you want to see them? So Stephanie has been promoted from within and is moving to the finance department. And we're sad to see her go, but excited for this advancement in her career. I'm proud of her. So Jacqueline will be here to help us out, and she's learning today. She's gonna be typing up these minutes and, other happenings in the department. We are seeing a strong report from the, permitting. We have a lot of decks, and that's kind of to be expected due to COVID, people looking for more outdoor space as opposed to, new startups. We, continue to see businesses start up. We had 13 in the month of November. And another piece of software that we've added to our toolbox for economic development is the Buxton Analytics. It's going to help us gauge where our consumers are coming from, where they're spending their dollars, just different types of analytics on the consumers here within our village. And it'll also help us target some of those consumers that go to communities that are similar to Ruidoso. So that'll help in a tourism aspect as well. So we're eager to put that to use and hopefully bring in more dollars to our community. We continued to see a strong short-term rental lodgers tax report as well, if you want to elaborate, so.
Yes.
Sam, is that all you had?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, just one thing I had, Mr. Starr, right there on the corner of Cree Meadows and Meacham. We made a motion last meeting and added in the contact the DOT regarding that driveway that's so close to the signal. And I checked with our traffic engineers and everything today down at the DOT, and they have not heard from Mr. Starr yet. Could you please give them a call, a phone number or something, and I can forward the contact information to them?
Yes, definitely. Who would they contact there? Is it Jesse?
No, Jesse moved on to technical support, but Mr. Jawadi is the traffic engineer.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
Okay.
Another addition that I failed to mention is the governing body approved to add funding to my budget to go out for RFP to rewrite Chapter 54. So hopefully things will improve with the rewrite, and we'll definitely have community input as well as input from you all during the process. We're putting together the request for proposal now to attract those planners to help us put together a great land use code. So that's really exciting. Yeah.
That's a major rewrite, yeah.
Yes. So, and then the other thing is the Metropolitan Redevelopment Plan for Sudreth is also in draft, and we are planning a community meeting for December 19th in the evening. I'm just waiting for confirmation from the contractor that that day works for them, and we'll publish that in the newspaper and get that out on social media so we can get some buy-in from the community as well.
Hey, Sam, can we require people like Mr. Townsend to have real drawings before they come to a concept approval?
Unfortunately, the code doesn't say that you need to come with professional drawings, so that's kind of where my hands are tied with that. And he is correct. Our surveyors are out several months. I don't know what's happened with this pandemic, but home improvements and property improvements have skyrocketed, and so they're super busy right now, thankfully. But so that is a challenge for him. But I have encouraged him. I don't want you all to think that that I welcomed those hand drawings, because they were very tough for me to read as well. But as an applicant, he had the right to apply and to submit that. I've gone back and forth with him over 20 emails probably, trying to get him to put together better plans for you all. However, that is something we can address in the rewrite. If you all are interested, I mean, we'll put that note down, and when we're getting that work done, I think we can add that in.
Let me also say that the code doesn't require that they come with professional plans, but the code does require, and the law requires, that they do comply with the code. And there were a lot of deficiencies in today's application.
Right. And I think there are certain pieces of the code that do require site plan per scale. And I don't know if that's part of our site development or what it is, but I know that there is reference to being to scale and contours and everything else. So there's some place already that refers to it, but it may not have been for this type of case. Is that all?
I don't think the spirit of the code either just says that you have to provide the percentages of land use. You just scribble it down on the side and just kind of, I mean, the drawings have to kind of match what or not kind of match. It has to be obvious from you guys in your review that if it's 70% commercial, then it's shown on the plat as 70, or in the drawing as 70% commercial, and whatever the other portions are. You can't just draw something and then say, you know, this will scale later. I promise that 70% will be commercial down the road.
But there is provisions for sketch plan, which they can do that for some developments and stuff like that. Well, I want something over here, and I want something over here, or something over here. Is that kind of okay? And there are provisions for a sketch plan.
Well, he could have easily put on there, he could have counted the parking spots, the spaces. He could have counted how many restrooms he has planned, and he could have given a calculation on how many restrooms for how many people. So I totally agree that he just kind of half-assed it as it was mentioned.
As Bart mentioned.
Multiple
Way to go, Bart.
I was trying to be a little bit more PC, but it seemed like he was getting the point.
Yeah.
I have another question, Sam. When is the readdressing starting?
For what?
We have already started working on it, but we want to make sure we get it right. I know, several people have been readdressed multiple times within the last 5 years, and so it's not something that we want to rush. I know the process is a little slow, due to COVID and just other priorities. My staff hasn't been, working on it as much as she should. But it is coming here in the near future.
Well, just curious. I know my street's gonna have to be redone, so I was just wondering when I should expect
I'm on
that.
the list too, I'm dreading it. We're all even both sides of the road.
Yeah.
So do we have meeting notes that addresses the Resort Drive street and how that interfaces with this request for development?
Mr. Collier, that was all noted in the minutes that were taken from the last meeting when those comments were received and made over the review of the development review checklist.
Okay, I didn't get that, but I'd like to review that again. I'll be looking for that information because we know if you drive through that street with any type of activity, it's very difficult as it is current. I'm sure that somebody's brought that to the attention.
It was.
Yes, and
Thank you.
those notes would be found in the minutes that were provided in your commissioner packet.
Okay, I must have not got that. Anyway, thank you, ma'am, for addressing that.
And prior to that, there was a whole stack of letters that were submitted as well that we had to read each one of them too. All right, is there anything come before us again? We'll see everybody in January. I move to, I need a motion to adjourn. I guess I can't do it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion,
Third.
motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
That too, huh? With all this COVID stuff, holidays are just a meld to me right now.